I think the Bucks are a team worth talking about right now because it was only a couple weeks ago where they lost to the Magic, dropped them to 5-4, and everyone was starting to lose their shit. Right? It was, should they have traded for Dame? Because then they got better on offense, but then they got worse on defense, and they don't have the assets to get better, blah, blah, blah. And then the biggest one was, obviously, should they have hired Adrian Griffin, rookie head coach? He had that fallout with Stotts. It's not looking good. You know, why is he going away from what worked for him last year with the drop coverage, blah, 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 blah. Everyone was ready to start panicking 9 games into the season. And since then, the Bucks have won 5 straight games. And not only have they won 5 straight games, they've won 5 straight games by an average margin of victory of 15. And not only are they blowing out teams with their offense, which ranks number 1 in the NBA during that time, but their defense is back up to a top 10 mark because they've started playing drop coverage again, right? Keeping Brook Lopez where he operates best on the defensive end. Such a crazy concept, right? Now, in fairness, someone more pessimistic than myself could point out that the 5 teams in Milwaukee beat aren't exactly that great. It was Chicago, Toronto, Charlotte, Dallas was a pretty big win, and then Washington, which is, come on. And as someone who wanted to see more from the Dallas Mavericks earlier this season before I started crowning them legitimate contenders, whatever, because they started like 6-1, but like their 6 wins weren't against anyone that impressive. Like I want to hold myself to those same standards, and so I definitely think there is something to be said about, like, hey, the Bucks definitely look good, and there's always something to be said about taking care of business. But if they're going to convince people that they can legitimately, beat Boston and compete for a championship, they're going to have to beat some better opponents. I get that, and that makes total sense. And if you feel that way, more power to you. The point I want to make is sort of like this is how the NBA season works. This is how the regular season works, right? There are a lot of highs. There are a lot of lows. It's not always going to look pretty. You're going to have to work through some stuff. Tensions are going to get high. That's sort of the beauty of the NBA regular season. It really is a journey. It really is a marathon, not a sprint. You got to realize that it's still super early in the season. I don't even think the season is a month old. And I also think Milwaukee deserves some of the benefit of the doubt from the standpoint of they're integrating so many new big pieces, right? An entire new head coach who has never been a head coach before. You bring in a player the caliber of Damian Lillard, which completely changes everything you do at both ends, right? Not just offensively, but defensively, because you also lose Drew Holiday. I think the best teams, the regular season nowadays, they use it more as like a ramp up, as a let's try and experiment. Let's figure this stuff out so that come playoff time, we're as great as we need to be. Again, it's a marathon, not a sprint. You don't have to sprint to win as many games as possible just to get those wins. It's not going to set you up for success when it really matters. And I think that's the ultimate mindset we need to have with these Bucks, especially so early in the season, which is that it's still really early. They're still figuring out a lot of stuff. If they start struggling post All-Star break, then we can have a discussion. But right now, this is what it looks for teams that had big summers, right? The biggest example I could give you is the Big 3 Miami Heat. They started off 9-8, and then they made the finals, because over time, you start to realize how things should operate. That's the entire point of the regular season, and I think we as fans, look, it's obviously tough to sort of compartmentalize that, because we all want to give instant reactions, and everything has to mean everything, especially with the media landscape that is today, but they need more time, and the sort of highs and lows for them this early in the season is a perfect example of why.